And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, November 14th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see any of your thoughts or comments be acknowledged during the live broadcast. If you want to see me acknowledge it. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. Also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to preview tonight's game to kick off Week 11. I don't know why I'm saying 18. Week 11 between the Eagles and the Commanders. A big NFC East matchup. Whoever wins this game will take over sole possession of first place. So big matchup there. A couple of big matchups this weekend, which we'll preview those tomorrow. But we'll get into that. We'll also talk about the news that broke yesterday about Anthony Richardson. He is going to take back the starting job from Joe Flacco. The Colts went 0-2 and Flacco starts, and now Anthony Richardson steps back in. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Aaron Rodgers and whether he's going to play in 2025 or not. We'll also get into talking about what Joe Schoen, the general manager of the New York Giants, had to say about the quarterback position and whether or not Daniel Jones is going to play when the Giants come out of their bye week in Week 12. And then we'll also talk about the head coaches. The head coaches that are on the hot seat, who's likely to lose their job after the season. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the NFC East matchup tonight between the Eagles and the Commanders. So last year, the Eagles did sweep the season series, but it wasn't easy. It was not easy by any means. The Commanders made it tough on them, and this was with Sam Howell at quarterback. But now they got Jayden Daniels, who is in line to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And both games last year were very high scoring. And like I said, that was with Sam Howell playing quarterback. One of the games ended up going into overtime, and Jake Elliott ended up kicking a game-winning field goal. I just want to double-check what the final scores of those matchups were. So the first one was 34-31. So Jake Elliott kicked the game-winning field goal, and the other one was 38-31 Eagles. And the Eagles actually were trailing in that game, I believe. And taking a look at the stats, Jalen Hurts was good in the first meeting, 25-37, 319 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. DeAndre Swift was the leading rusher. Obviously now the Eagles have Saquon Barkley. Swift had 56 yards on the ground and a touchdown. A.J.Brown, he was great in both games. 9 receptions for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first meeting. Devontae Smith had 7 for 78. Eagles defense had 5 sacks in the game. Hassan Reddick had a sack in this game, but obviously he is not on the team anymore. And then on the other side, Sam Howell, who's not with them, he's now a backup on the Seahawks. He went 29-41 for 290 yards and 1 touchdown. Brian Robinson Jr., who we will see tonight, it's likely he's going to play. He had 14 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin had 8 receptions for 86 yards in that game. And then in the second meeting between the two teams, this one was 38-31. And like I said, the Eagles were trailing in this game, but they did come back. High-scoring fourth quarter. The Eagles had 21 points in the fourth quarter, and the Commanders had 14. So for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he was solid in that game. Went 29-38 for 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Swift, 57 yards on the ground and the touchdown. A.J.Brown, 8 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he was unbelievable in those two games, like I said. Devontae Smith, 7 for 99 and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert had 4 for 36. Julio Jones actually had a touchdown in that game. He was a late-season pickup. And then for the Commanders, Sam Howell had 4 touchdowns. He had almost 400 yards passing, 397 yards passing. Brian Robinson Jr. had 59 yards on the ground. Jahan Dotson, who is now with the Eagles, He was their leading receiver in that game. He had 8 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder had 7 for 95 and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin had 5 for 63 and a touchdown. But like I said, Eagles won both games. And what to expect from this game? I do expect it to be very competitive. The Commanders are 3.5-point underdogs in this game. And it's not like the Commanders have not beaten the Eagles in recent memory. You go back to 2 years ago when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl and Taylor Heineke and the Commanders beat them on that Monday night. So I think the Commanders definitely have a chance to win this game. And looking at the league rankings for this season, in terms of passing yards per game, the Commanders are 14th. Eagles are 19th. Rushing yards per game, both teams are top 5. The Eagles are 2nd, and the Commanders are 4th. So expect that to play a role tonight. Saquon Barkley did not have a good game last week against the Cowboys. I expect him to bounce back in this game. And then points per game, the Commanders are 3rd and the Eagles are 7th. And then on the defensive side of the ball, both teams actually are top 10 against the pass. Eagles defense is 3rd, giving up an average of 192.4 passing yards per game. And the Commanders defense is actually 5th, giving up an average of 198.6. And they struggled last year. Their secondary was not good, but it's a better unit this year. But against the run is where there is a huge disparity. So the Eagles are 5th. They're giving up an average of 100.7 rushing yards per game, and the Commanders are 28th, giving up an average of 142.7 rushing yards per game. So like I said, Saquon Barkley did not have a good game last week. I think he's going to do better here. And you also have to worry about Jalen Hurts as well, running with the football. And he did well doing that last week against the Cowboys. And then points allowed, Eagles defense is 5th, and the Commanders defense is 12th. So we'll see what happens. The Eagles defense is better than it has been. Last year was not a very good unit, but this year it's kind of bounced back a little bit. But the thing is with the Eagles is I don't trust them. I don't trust them as my camera just turns off as we continue to have issues with that. But I don't, because, they have these big leads. Against Jacksonville, they had that big lead, and then they end up, almost blowing it. They ended up winning the game, but that game got very dicey when it shouldn't have. So we'll see what happens in this game. I'm actually going to take the Commanders to win outright. I think they bounce back here after losing that tough game to the Steelers. I like them to win this game just because I don't trust the Eagles. And I feel like the Eagles, they're due for a loss. I think their last loss came against the Buccaneers. Because right now they're 7-2. Yeah, their last loss came in Week 4 against the Buccaneers. And they have beaten the Browns, the Giants, the Bengals, who don't have a good defense, the Jaguars, and the Cowboys with Cooper Rush at quarterback. So now this is a test for them. And I think they will be up for the challenge. I think their offense will put up points, but for some reason I like the Commanders here. Now, it doesn't help me in terms of my predictions because I did have the Eagles winning the NFC East. So, it's either my predictions end up being right from the start of the year or my current prediction right here, which is having the Commanders win this game. So, but look, I got to continue to give the Commanders props because I was so wrong on them. They have played really well. They have surprised me. And Dan Quinn has his team playing really well. The defense has been a huge improvement this year. And Jayden Daniels, he has been as advertised. He's been very good. And like I said, he's, possibly going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So he's definitely up there. And I just think this Commanders team, they know how to play against the Eagles. And I think they are, I think they can get a win here. Even though it's going to be tough. It's in Philly. And the Eagles, want to protect their home field. But I like the Commanders to win this game. I feel like Jalen Hurts is going to turn the ball over at a crucial point in the game, which is going to lead to the Commanders winning. But like I said, I think they're going to lean on Saquon Barkley tonight. A.J.Brown, like I said, had really good games against them last year, so they're going to lean on him as well. Hurts is going to get him the ball. Devontae Smith was banged up. Got banged up last week, I believe, against the Cowboys. So let's kind of look at his status for the game. And no, he's not appearing on the injury report, so I think he's good to go. Because I know he had the questionable label on him on the fantasy app, on the sleeper app. But yeah, no, he's good to go. So yeah, he was dealing with a bit of a hamstring injury, but yeah, no, he's good to go. So they got all their weapons for this game, so that's huge. But like I said, I think the Commanders pull off the upset here, if we're going to even call it that. But this is a big game because both teams are looking to be in first place after this week in sole possession. And obviously they play each other later on. But, if you can win this first matchup, you have a leg up. Especially going we're getting into the home stretch here. So, but like I said, I think the Commanders can pull off the upset here. So that's my prediction. But if not, I am taking them with the points. So if the Eagles win and the Commanders cover, I will take that. But I'm actually going to say that they win outright. So we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you think wins this game? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about Anthony Richardson back as the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Reclaims the starting role. Flacco, of course, started the previous 2 games. But now Anthony Richardson steps back in. He will be starting for the Colts when they take on the Jets, who we will talk about a little later in the show. He'll be starting against them on Sunday. So we'll talk about all that when we return from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.